Watches, welcome to Perth Watch, your horology channel, broadcasting from right here in Perth, Western Australia. Today I have the pleasure to feature the second piece from Beaufort Watches, New Zealand-based Beaufort Watches. Now the Aero Timer was their first watch. I reviewed that quite some time ago. It was quite a good piece. I think it was quite successful. Hence they have been able to move on to release what will be their second watch, which is, yes, it is a dive watch, but different enough that I felt that I wanted to feature on the channel. Now today's watch comes in simple cardboard packaging, so without further ado, let's flip the camera around now and take a closer look at what's in here. Alright guys, so here we have the lovely packaging on the table. Spinnability, actually it's not fantastic, it's probably a 2 out of 5. But you know, interestingly, Beaufort felt compelled to clarify with me that this is not going to be the usual packaging. I've got the spare links in there. This is just, of course, a sample packaging, which is what I assumed, but I thought it was kind of amusing that they needed to clarify, just in case I thought that was what this watch is going to come with. Okay guys, so what we have here is the Beaufort Cavalli dive watch. Okay, Cavalli is a region in New Zealand which is famous for scuba diving, and they've named this watch after the lovely region there. And well, I've actually not got this on the 12 o'clock position. I'm just gonna you know, just show some love to you guys who love it at 12 o'clock. This is immersion therapy, so you know, if you're going to get an anaphylactic reaction to that being there, this is going to cure you from now on, so you're just going to have to put up with it. All right, so Beaufort Cavalli automatic dive watch, the MSRP that this is going to go for on their campaign is actually unknown to me as of this moment. You know, I'm waiting for them to get back to me about the price, and I will put it down in the details as well as down here if I find out. But right now I don't know, so I can't tell you. What I do know is there is a consideration for a 30% discount on the MSRP for early backers. So do check out the campaign when it comes out. I think I'm going to release this just before, so keep an eye out on the links at the bottom if you're interested to follow this. All right. Okay, so first up, as I usually do, let's talk about the movement in here, guys. The movement is none other than an ETA 2824 base movement. It is the STP 111, which I've seen before in this channel. You would have seen some watches having this before. It is, as far as I know, fairly reliable. The specs are essentially identical to the SW200. You know, it's a 26 jewel movement, slightly longer power reserve because I understand that it's got a longer mainspring. It's got all the other features that you can see there, including the quick set date, which in this watch is featured on the 6 o'clock position, which does preserve the symmetry of the dial. I always do enjoy that type of feature. The rating of the STP is not really known. You know, presumably it's going to be something like minus 10 seconds to plus 30 seconds per day. In actual use, this is a prototype. It's running within that window of about plus 15 seconds per day in the 1 week that I've had this running non-stop. Okay, so enough about the movement. Let's talk about the case now. So case-wise here, we have a fairly classic design, classic case size, which is 39 millimeters. So the case itself, right, is smaller than the bezel. The bezel is actually a full 40 millimeter bezel, right? So just keep that in mind. So and that's really what you're going to detect as a wrist presence, is the 40 millimeter bezel. Thickness is fairly substantial. It's actually 13.8 to the top of the crystal there. Okay, so not very thin. I guess it'll be slightly less, maybe 12 point something if you just measure it to the top of the bezel, but the full thickness up to the top of the glass, which is what I measure, is 13.8. The lug width, as you might guess, in a classic size like this is 20 millimeters. Lug to lug distance is 49 millimeters. So fairly substantial lugs, which gives you a fairly substantial lug to lug of 49 millimeters overall. The weight with the 3 links I removed in the packaging that you saw there is 133 grams. You know, it's substantial, but certainly not a very heavy watch. I think this is quite comfortable on the wrist, in my opinion, that type of weight. Okay, finishing wise, what we have here is longitudinal brushing on the top of the case here. It transitions to what is actually polished sides, right? You can see it's a high polish on the side there. It's also got a polish on the bottom, and that is also the screw down caseback that you can see there does have a polished surface. It's a display in the middle showing that ETA inspired movement. So we've got a screw down polished caseback. We've got a screw down sign crown there, so it's got the signage there. The water resistant rating for this diver is 200 meters. That's really what they've gone for here. All right, now let's move on to the dial here. So this watch is going to be available in a number of color variations, including I think the standard blue and black and whatnot. Check out the links down bottom to find out the variations. I don't know all of them currently, but this is kind of like a bronze fume dial. I'm going to call it a bronze color. That's what it reminds me of. It's got a fume effect, meaning it kind of burns out into black at the periphery. So nice and vintage there. It's got gilt printing as well as the chapter ring, which is, hopefully you can appreciate that it's on the flange, right? The chapter ring, embossed numerals and indices. So indices, at the odd positions, and then the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 are the full numerals that you're getting here, as you can see on the shots that I'm showing you guys. Hands wise, we have polished hands. It's got a fairly classic arrow for the hour. It's got a baton for the minute, and then a little bit of an arrow head for the seconds there. The lume is BGW9, so it glows blue color, hands and indices, not the bezel though, which is slightly disappointing. I'm not sure whether they will change that for the production model rather than what we're getting here on this prototype. It doesn't glow particularly bright on this prototype, certainly doesn't tend to last all night, but for what it's worth, I'll show you a lume shot right here to see how it looks like in the dark. I presume the production models will be better applied. Okay, moving on from the dial now, surrounding it is a 120 click unidirectional dive bezel. It's got that narrow kind of vintage look, as you can see there, gilt printing as well, and it's got a sapphire insert. Let's just hear how it sounds now. Okay, slight double clicks here and there, but it's 120 clicks. Fairly positive. You can definitely hear it, and it's not that difficult to turn, which is good. It's not too hard out of the case here. On top of the dial is a pretty lovely, I gotta say, this is one of my favorite features of this watch. It's a very nice box sapphire crystal there. Right, that's really what you're seeing there with that lovely distortion. Really like box sapphires like this one. I'm a sucker for it, I gotta say. All right, moving on to the bracelet. Now the bracelet, at first glance, I kind of thought, oyster, but it's not quite an oyster. It's fully brushed, it's 3-piece per link. It's got polished sides. It does have solid end links with quick release bars, right? You can hopefully see the quick release bars there. It doesn't, however, have screw links. It actually is push pin adjustment on this bracelet there. Moving on to the clasp, I'll tell you firstly, the bracelet does taper to 16mm from 20, and you got the clasp, which is about 17.8mm width, right? Just to put those on there. All right, the clasp is, I think this is mostly pressed metal. It could be machined, but it's not a very thick machine clasp. It does have a push button deployant with solid arms. And you can see there on the side, it's got 4-point micro adjustment. This is what you're getting on this clasp here. Okay, so that's the entire description of the watch. I'm just going to snap it on the wrist now for a wrist shot for you guys. And there we have it, guys. Wrist shot of the Beaufort Cavalli automatic diver on my 17cm wrist. So remembering, 40mm bezel, 49mm lug width. It's just okay for me. So just beware, if you have a small wrist, this might slightly be a bit large. 13.8 is the thickness. And there we go, fairly nicely profiled, quite slim bracelet there. And that's how that looks like on the wrist. Okay, so there we have it. That's all the description of this watch. What have I enjoyed about this Beaufort Cavalli diver. Well, I gotta say, it's a pretty well done, vintage inspired, quality executed dive watch. I really feel that they've really done quality execution on this diver here. And, it's definitely got a Seamaster type of vibe, a Omega type of vibe, particularly with the dial, the casing, the handset. Yet, it's not a direct copy in any way. There's some originality on this design, and I do appreciate that. I think it's got nicely chosen details. I really like the dome crystal, I make no secret of that. I think the handset's quite good. The dial markings, fairly nicely balanced, well done, 6 o'clock date position. And the bezel font is also quite nice, that vintage narrower bezel that we're seeing here. I think the case layering, even though it's a thick case with the glass, I think they've broken it up, fairly nicely with the bezel, the housing, the case side and then the case back. It breaks up nicely so it doesn't actually look that thick from the side, that type of visual, optical illusion that sometimes, does well to make a thick case appear not so thick. And I think the bracelet facets, the way this is designed, this doesn't come across as a Chinese OEM, which is really cool. This looks like something more original. I've definitely not seen anything exactly like this before. I think the smaller size overall as well, 39mm case, makes it suitable for the majority, and the design lends itself well to broader versatility. You could actually swap out to leather, and this could actually be suitable for more formal occasions because it's not too loud as a diver by any means. Now, what are the weak points about this piece? Honestly, well, not too much to say. I think the lack of bezel loom is concerning, and hopefully they will address it for the production model. People will complain about that for sure, I think. I think easy ways they could lift this would be give us screw links on the bracelet, give us a nice solid machine class, and this would be lifted to a nearly perfect production. If they give us those inclusions, you probably can't ask too much more of this watch, provided you also give us better BGW9 application. Right, okay, so guys, there we go. Those are my thoughts on this Beaufort Cavalli diver. Let's flip the camera around now for the wrap up. So there you go, guys, my review of the Beaufort Cavalli automatic dive watch. Let me know what you think. Yes, it is another diver, and I've kind of made it a point not to review too many divers going forward, but I thought this one had enough inspiration, vintage design, something different for me to offer to review it on the channel, and hopefully you agree with me. I think there's a lot of good points about it. Let me know indeed your thoughts about this, and if you are going to jump on the Kickstarter, would certainly love to hear why you chose to do so. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. New content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys again next time.